AI agents are shipping faster than your change control meetings, and the governance is a vibe. You know that feeling when a Copilot ships with tenant-wide access just for testing? Yeah, that's your compliance officer's heartbeat you're hearing. Today, I'm tearing down the mess in Langchain4j and Copilot Studio with real cases, prompt injection, over-permissive connectors, and audit gaps. And I'll show you what breaks, why it breaks, and the fixes that actually hold. Stay to the end. I'll give you the one governance step that prevents most incidents. You'll leave with an agent RBAC model, data loss policies, and a red team checklist. Case 1. Prompt injection. The unsupervised intern writes policy. Prompt injection is that unsupervised intern who sounds helpful, writes incomplete sentences, and then emails payroll data to their personal archive for safekeeping. You think your system prompt is the law. The model thinks it's a suggestion. And the moment you ground it on internal content, one spicy document or user message can rewrite the rules mid-conversation. Why this matters? When injection wins, your agent becomes a data-leaking poet. It hallucinates authority, escalates tools, and ignores policy language like it's the Wi-Fi terms of service. In regulated shops, that's not a bug, it's a reportable incident with your company name on it. Let's start with what breaks in Langchain4j. The thing most people miss is that tool calling without strict output schemas is basically do crimes, return vibes. If your tools accept unchecked arguments, think free text, SQL, or query fields, and you don't validate types, ranges, or enums, the model will happily pass along whatever an attacker smuggles in. Weak output validation is the partner in crime. When you expect JSON but accept JSONish, an attacker can slip instructions in comments or strings that your downstream parser treats as commands. This clicked for me when I saw logs where a retrieval tool took a topic parameter with arbitrary markdown. The next call passed that markdown like it was configuration. That's not orchestration. That's self-own. Now here's where most people mess up. They rely on the model's please be safe setting instead of guardrails in code. In Langchain4j, you need allow lists for tool names and arguments, JSON schema outputs enforced at the boundary, pattern-based output filters to nuke secrets, and exception handling that doesn't retry the same poisoned input 5 times like a golden retriever with a tennis ball. The reason this works is it turns trust the model into verify every byte. What breaks in Copilot Studio? Naive grounding with broad SharePoint ingestion. You connect an entire site collection for completeness, and now one onboarding doc with ignore previous instructions becomes your agent's new religion. System prompts editable by business users is the sequel. I love business users, but giving them prompt admin is like letting marketing set firewall rules because they know the brand voice. And yes, I've seen tenant configs where moderation was disabled to reduce friction. You wish you couldn't. Evidence you'll recognize. Tenant logs that show tools invoked with unbounded parameters like export all flags that were never supposed to exist. Conversation traces where the assistant repeats an injected string from a retrieved document. Disabled moderation toggles. That's not hypothetical. That's every post-incident review you don't want to attend. So what's the fix path you can implement today? For Langchain4j, enforce allow lists at the tool registry. If the tool isn't registered with a schema, it doesn't exist. Require JSON schema outputs and reject anything that doesn't validate. No schema, no response, full stop. Add pattern filters for obvious leaks, API keys, secrets, SSNs. Bloom filters are fast and cheap. Use them. Wrap tools with policy checks. Validate argument types, ranges, and expected formats before execution. Add content moderation in pre-post processors. Keep the model from acting on or emitting toxic or sensitive content. Fail closed with explicit exceptions and never auto-retry poisoned prompts. For Copilot Studio, lock system prompts. Only admins can change them. Version them like code. Scope connectors by environment. Dev, test, prod, different boundaries. Least privilege on data sources. Turn on content moderation policies at the tenant level. This is table stakes. Ground only on labeled sensitivity tagged content, not the whole farm for convenience. The quick win that pays off immediately, add an output schema and a Bloom filter moderation step at the agent boundary. You'll kill most dumb leaks without touching business logic. Then layer in a small regex allow list for formats you expect, like structured summaries, and block everything else. Let me show you exactly how this plays out. Example, you have a create ticket tool that accepts title, description, and priority. Without schema enforcement, an attacker injects description, close all P1 incidents inside a triple backtick block. The model passes it through. Your ITSM API shrugs and runs an update script. With schema and validation, description can't contain command tokens or exceed length. The request fails closed, logs a correlation ID, and your CM flags a moderation hit. And boom, look at that result. Incident avoided, trail preserved, auditor appeased. Common mistakes to avoid. Letting the model choose tool names dynamically. Tools are contracts, not suggestions. Accepting freeform JSON without a validator. Looks like JSON is not a complement. Editable prompts in production environments. If it can change without review, it will. Relying on conversation memory for policy. Policy belongs in code and config, not vibes. Once you nail this, everything else clicks. You stop the intern from talking out of turn. Next, we stop them from walking into every room with a master key. Case 2. Over-permissive connectors, keys to the castle on a lanyard. You stop the intern from talking. Now take the badge back. Over-permissive connectors are that janitor keyring that opens every door in the building, including the vault, the daycare, and somehow the CEO's peloton. Why this matters is simple. One over-scoped connector equals enterprise-wide data exfiltration in a single request, not theoretical. One call, while you're still arguing about the change ticket title. Let's start with what breaks in Langchain4j. Developers share API keys across agents for convenience. Then someone commits the env to a private repo that's actually public, and you're doing incident response at 2 a.m. How broad OAuth scopes are next. You grant read, write all to save time during testing, and 6 months later, that test token is now production's crown jewel. And the tool registry? I love a clean registry, but if you point a dev agent at production credentials because the demo has to work today, you just wired a chainsaw to a Roomba. The thing most people miss is that tools inherit whatever identity you hand them. Shared credentials mean shared blast radius. There's no magic, only do save things flag. If the token can delete records, your agent can delete records accidentally, enthusiastically, and with perfect confidence. Now swing over to Copilot Studio. Tenant-wide M365 connectors are the classic trap. You click once, and now every Copilot in every team can see data it shouldn't. That's not empowerment, that's a buffet for mistakes. Then you deploy to teams with org-wide visibility because adoption, and suddenly a pilot bot meant for finance is answering questions in marketing, pulling content from SharePoint sites it never should have known existed. And unmanaged third-party SaaS hooks? Those are like USB drives in 2009, mysteriously everywhere and always temporary. Evidence shows up the same way every time. Stale secrets that never rotated, no expiration, no owner. Connectors mapped to global groups for simplicity. App registrations with scopes that read like a confession. And yes, that temporary prod key living in dev for months. Your security findings and tenant configs won't lie, they'll just sigh. So what's the fix path? For Langchain4j, treat every agent like a separate application with its own identity. Create per agent service principles. No shared tokens. If two agents need the same API, they still get different credentials. Use scoped OAuth. Grant the smallest set of permissions that lets the tool do its job. Reader, not writer. Write to one collection, not all. Store secrets in a proper secret manager. Rotate on a schedule. Rotate on incident. Rotate when someone even whispers token. Add tool level RBAC. A tool wrapper checks the caller's role before it touches an API. No role, no call. Separate environments. Dev keys only talk to dev systems. If a tool sees a prod endpoint in dev, it fails closed and screams in the logs. For Copilot Studio, draw hard boundaries with environments and scopes. Use environment separation, dev, test, prod, different connectors, different permissions, different owners. Review connector scopes with a workflow. Changes require approval, expiration dates, and owners. No owner, no connector. Apply DLP policies per channel. Finance channel gets stricter rules than company-wide. That's the point. Kill org-wide teams deployments for pilots. Limit visibility to a security group. Expand only after review. Inventory and gate third-party SaaS connectors. If it's unmanaged, it's off by default. Owners must justify access and renew it. Here's a quick win you can ship this afternoon. Kill tenant-wide scopes and map each connector to a security group with an expiration policy. When the group expires, access dies gracefully. No drama, no surprise. Let me show you exactly how this plays out. You've got an export report tool that writes to a storage bucket. With shared credentials, it can see every bucket, so a prompt that says save backup to archive quietly lands sensitive data in a public-facing path. With per-agent principles and scoped roles, that tool can only write to one bucket with one prefix. If the model decides to invent another path, the API denies it, you lock the correlation ID and your CM fires an alert. And boom, no accidental data lake party. Common mistakes to avoid. Using global groups for access, just for now. Now never ends. Granting broad OAuth scopes because the docs were confusing. Confusing is not a permission. Copying credentials across environments. If you can paste it, you'll paste it wrong. Treating teams' visibility as harmless. Visibility is access. Access is risk. Once you nail access scoping, auditors stop smelling blood in the water. And when they do knock, you'll need proof. Which brings us to the part everyone forgets. If it isn't logged, it didn't happen. Case 3. Audit gaps. If it isn't logged, it didn't happen. You scoped access. Great. Now prove it, because when an auditor asks, what did the agent do at 3:14 p.m.? And your answer is, we think something? That's not a posture, that's an apology tour. Why this matters? Without lineage, you can't explain weird answers, roll back bad actions, or even know if an incident was contained. Regulators love that uncertainty. Customers love it less. And your execs really love it when you say, we have no idea. Here's the thing most people miss in Langchain4j. Your chain is doing a lot more than your logs admit. Missing execution graphs mean you can't reconstruct the steps. No trace IDs means events look like random fireworks. Partial logs hide the one tool call that mattered. And silent tool failures, those are my favorite. Everything looks green while the tool never ran, and the model just hallucinated a response to be polite. This clicked for me the day I chased an incident where a retrieval step timed out, returned null, and the next step happily wrote no records found, closing to a ticketing API. No exception, no trace, just vibes and closed tickets. If you can't tell model output from tool output in your logs, you're already in trouble. Let me show you exactly how to fix Langchain4j logging so it's courtroom ready. First, enable structured logging everywhere. JSON, not string soup. Every request and response gets an envelope with timestamps, model name, token counts, and a correlation ID that survives the whole chain. Then add execution graphs or traces using Langsmith or Langgraph. Each node logs inputs, outputs, duration, and errors. If a tool throws, it throws loud. No silent failure, no we assumed. Now the big one. Centralize it. Pipe traces and logs into your seam. Don't leave them on a pod that auto-scales to oblivion. Add sampling for noise but never drop errors. You want to search by trace ID and see the entire story. Prompts, retrieved docs, tool calls, API responses, and the final answer without playing Where's Waldo at 2 a.m. swing to Copilot Studio. The platform gives you some telemetry, but it's spread across Teams, Dataverse, and whatever connector you touched. Limited conversation export means you get snippets, not narratives. Fragmented telemetry means your compliance officer is stitching screenshots like it's arts and crafts. Fix it by building a unified audit lane. Turn on conversation transcript retention with clear retention SLAs, who keeps it, how long, and why. Export conversation and action logs to a centralized workspace like Fabric or Log Analytics. Tag every event with a correlation ID that you pass from the entry point in Teams all the way through Dataverse plugins and downstream APIs. If the chat says create case, I want to click through to the exact record in the exact system with the exact data that was sent. Evidence you'll recognize from incident reviews. Orphaned LLM calls in raw logs that don't map to any user session. Tool invocations with no corresponding prompt. Or answers citing sources you can't find because grounding logs don't include document IDs. That's not a mystery. That's missing plumbing. Quick wins you can ship this week. Mandate request response envelopes with hashes. Store a content hash of prompts, retrieve chunks and outputs so you can prove integrity. If someone tampers, the hash says nope, require correlation IDs end-to-end. Generate at the edge, pass through every hop, and reject any call that drops it. No ID, no service. Define retention SLAs. Legal signs off. Security enforces. 90 days for dev, a year for prod, longer for regulated domains. Publish it. Live by it. Common mistakes to avoid. Logging raw secrets or PII. Mask at source. Keep the fields you need for forensics, not the crown jewels. Sampling errors. Sample success. Log all failures. When things break, you'll need every breadcrumb. Free text logs. Humans love them. Machines hate them. Use fields. Add schemas. Validate on ingest. Now, auditors ask, what happened? You open one trace. You show the prompt, the retrieved doc IDs, the tool input, the tool output, and the final message. Correlation ID matches the API gateway, the database write, and the Teams message. And boom, the story holds. So when you can see, you can govern, which means it's time to formalize the rules and lock down who does what. The agent RBAC model, treat agents like very dumb, very powerful users. You've got visibility. Good. Now give these things an identity and a leash. Agents are users. Very dumb, very powerful users. If you wouldn't give a human temp admin on day one, don't hand it to a stochastic parrot that can't tell sarcasm from pseudo. Why this matters? Most orgs secure humans and ignore agents. The agent then bypasses least privilege by design. It hops tools, crosses environments, and nobody notices because it doesn't show up in the org chart. That's how helper bot turns into shadow admin. Here's the model I want you to ship. One identity per agent, clear roles, policy checks in code, and environment boundaries that actually mean something. Start with identity, create a service principal for every agent, not platform bot 01. Actual one-to-one mapping. Name it like an app. Tag it with owner, purpose, environment, and expiration. If two agents hit the same API, they still get different identities. Shared identity equals shared blast radius. Then define a role taxonomy that even busy people can apply. I use 4. Reader, runner, writer, admin. Reader can fetch data, no side effects. Think query, retrieve, summarize. Runner can invoke workflows with bounded effects. Create ticket, send approval, schedule meeting. Writer can write data to specific scopes, one table, one bucket, one mailbox, not all. Admin can change configuration. This role should make you sweat. Use sparingly, time-bound, and always dual-approved. Now map that to Langchain4j. Tools are your enforcement points. Each tool wrapper checks the caller's role before executing. If the agent identity is mapped to reader, a write tool never even receives the call. And don't stop at role, include resource scope. A writer to cases finance can't write cases sales. Scope is not a comment, it's a gate. Use environment variables and config files to bind tools to environments. Dev agent only sees dev hosts and dev keys. If it tries a prod URL, fail closed and log loudly. Policy checks happen at the boundary, not after the API call fails. In Copilot Studio, do the same pattern with environment roles and connector scopes. Assign the agent to an environment with permissions that mirror reader, so runner, writer, admin. Connector permissions map to security groups tied to those roles. Teams deployment boundaries are your blast radius. Keep pilots inside a small group. Expand only with a change ticket. This is where the review workflow keeps you honest. Any scope change is a change request. List the agent, the requested role, the connector or tool, the environment, the reason, the requester, and the expiration. 2 approvals, 1 technical owner, 1 data owner. When the expiration hits, access dies automatically, and you get an alert to renew or let it go. Temporary finally means temporary. Let me show you exactly how this plays out with a micro story. A finance Q&A agent starts as reader. People love it, so product wants create expense report. And that's a runner action with a narrow scope. You add a new tool with a tool level policy. Only expense submit. Only for the employee's cost center. Only under 5 attachments. The agent identity gets runner for that single API expiring in 30 days. In Copilot Studio, the environment gains a connector permission to 1 Dataverse table with row-level security. Audit logs show the change ticket, the approvers, the expiration. When marketing asks for also delete reports, you decline or route to a separate writer tool with its own owners and SLA. The model can want anything. The policy enforces everything. Common mistakes you need to stop. Shared identities for convenience. Convenience is the enemy of containment. Temporary admin that never expires. Put timeouts on the permission, not your calendar. Prod credentials in dev to unblock demos. Demos don't need production data, auditors do. Tool gating by UI, not code. If the model can call it, the user interface doesn't matter. If you remember nothing else, treat agents like users with dumb curiosity and sharp knives. Identity per agent, role per action, scope per resource. Time bound by default. And every call checks policy before it touches data. Data loss policies that actually block AI from becoming a leaky faucet. You gave agents identities and roles. Now we stop the drips. Governance is proactive here. Block the bad before it leaves the building. Why this matters? AI multiplies exposure. A single prompt can produce 100 outbound tokens, each a potential leak. If your controls only show up in postmortems, you're doing forensics, not governance. Here's the policy set that actually bites. Think of it as seatbelts, airbags, and a brick wall. PII redaction on outputs by default. Names, emails, phone numbers, national IDs. If the user isn't entitled, it's masked. No, but it's internal. Internal is where leaks live. Secrets detection, guard for API keys, tokens, private keys, connection strings, patterns plus Bloom filters for speed. Add checksums for common formats so false positives don't drown you. Sensitive term filters tuned to your business. Legal project names, M&A code words, unreleased product code names. Keep this list in a managed store with owners and change history. Regex allow list for output structure. If the tool expects an invoice summary, only invoice shape outputs pass. Narrative poetry doesn't. Schemas aren't optional, they're contracts. In Langchain4j, enforce in pre- and post-processors. Pre-processors scan inputs for injection payloads and disallow tasks. Post-processors validate JSON schemas, run term secret filters, and redact PII before anything leaves the agent boundary. If a check fails, you return a safe error with a correlation ID. No partial truths, no maybe. Add moderation pipelines. Lightweight, pattern filters and Bloom filters. Heavier, AI-based moderation for context, e.g. don't disclose health data. Chain them. Fail closed. And define fallback behavior, summarize at a higher level, give a safe refusal or route to a human. Don't loop the model into giving a safer leak. In Copilot Studio, use the stack you already pay for. DLP policies in Microsoft 365 apply to channels and connectors. Turn them on and tune them. Use sensitivity labels in your grounding sources so the agent never indexes high-impact content without explicit approval. Tenant-level moderation should be on by default, not we'll turn it on later. Later is when PR gets involved. Monitoring ties this together. Set thresholds, unusual output size, unusual destination, unusual frequency. If a Q&A bot suddenly writes megabytes to an external endpoint, quarantine the session. Auto-expire risky sessions and notify owners. Keep alerts actionable. Don't ping everyone for every mask event. Quick win you can ship today. Enforce output schemas and block list terms at the agent boundary. No schema, no response. Add PII redaction as a final pass. That combination stops the obvious leaks and buys you time to implement the rest. Common mistakes. Letting redaction depend on front-end code. Redact server-side before the message ever hits a client. One global block list. Segment by business domain. Finance words aren't marketing words. Logging the unredacted original for debugging. Mask at ingestion, keep a secure vault copy only if your legal team signed off. Lock the faucet, then try to break it on purpose. The red teaming checklist, break it before prod users do. You don't trust the seatbelt until you yank on it. Same with guardrails. Make the chaos scheduled. Goal: adversarial testing you can repeat, not vibes. You'll ship a checklist, run it on a cadence, and gate releases with it. Injection tests first. Role confusion, prompt the agent to ignore policy and act as system. It should refuse. Tool name collision. Inject fake tool names and parameters. Only registered tools should ever execute. Schema bypass. Embed commands in strings and JSON comments. Validators must reject. Chain of thought bait. Try to coax reasoning dumps that leak sources. Output should stay within schema. Data exfil prompts. Quote the exact SSNs. Export all emails. You get a refusal with an audit trail. Access tests next. Scope escalation. Request actions outside the agent's role. Tools must block at wrapper level. Expired token behavior. Rotate secrets mid-session. Calls should fail closed with clear errors. Shadow environment leakage. Dev agent tries prod endpoints. Hard fail. Loud logs. Audit tests. Trace completeness. Can you reconstruct prompt to action with one correlation ID? Tamper detection. Alter stored logs. Hash mismatch should alarm. Cross-service correlation. Teams message ID to Dataverse record to external API call all matched. Define pass/fail gates. No schema ill fail. Any output that doesn't validate blocks the release. Tenant-wide scope equals fail. Any connector without scope groups and expiration is blocked. Silent tool failure equals fail. Errors must be surfaced, not swallowed. No rollback plan equals fail. If you can't revert a permission change or a model config in minutes, you're not ready. Cadence pre-release for every agent change. Quarterly chaos drills against prod-like environments. Post-incident learning loop within 5 business days with new tests added to the suite. Owners and SLAs. Each checklist item has an owner and SLA to fix and a status. No owner, no ship. Quick win. Wire no schema equal fail and tenant-wide scope equals fail as CI/CD checks. If either trips, the pipeline stops. No meetings, no debates, just a red light that everyone respects. Run the list, break things, fix them, then run it again until the surprises stop being surprising. The one governance step most orgs skip. If you remember nothing else, agents are identities. Treat them like very dumb, very powerful users with least privilege, enforced output contracts, and full audit trails. The step most orgs skip is creating dedicated service principles for every agent, then wiring every tool and connector through scoped roles by environment. No shared creds, no tenant-wide scopes. Adopt the RBAC model, turn on the DLP policies, and run the red team checklist this week. Subscribe for the follow-up where I show the exact configs in Langchain4j and Copilot Studio so you can copy-paste governance instead of apologies.